Welcome to the next chapter of As the Story Grows. I'm Brian Patton. Today we welcome Steven, Jacob, and Seb from Facedown Records band Confessions of a Traitor. The band's Facedown Records debut, Punishing Myself Before God Does, is up this Friday, September 16th. Links to the album will be in the show notes. The guys talk about their musical backgrounds, how the band came together, how they managed to release so much music during the pandemic, finding their place in the UK scene, the lyrical themes on the new record, and a lot more. Punishing Myself is an incredible record, and I think big things are in store for Confessions of a Traitor. So sit back and enjoy getting to know Confessions of a Traitor.
Please go first.
Yeah. So I'm Steven. I'm the vocalist for Confessions of a Traitor.
I'm Jacob. I am guitars and vocals for Confessions of a Traitor.
And I'm Seb. I play drums.
Nice. I'm Jacob. I never would have guessed you played guitar. It's a mystery.
It's just a small flex. He's like, all the instruments I have.
Look at the producing power.
To be fair, you've got some in the background going on there.
I do. I do. Yeah. It all looks nice, and all my toys are over here. So it's professional here and just childish in front of me. So
Isn't that the same about Steve?
That's exactly how I live my life. I look at professional white walls, and I'm staring at couple of Xbox Series X's.
Yeah.
Although in front of that there is an exercise bike. So priorities.
Nice. You guys are all in London?
I am directly. I live very close to the centre of London. But it's just easier to say we're a London-based band, because if we were like, our guitarist from Burgess Hill, they'd all be like, where's that? And then, no one knows where Reading is anyway. So, isn't that right, Seb?
Yeah, no one knows where Reading is because I don't even live there.
That's funny. Yeah, I was in London earlier this year for the first time.
Nice.
Yeah.
Whereabouts did you go?
Where was I? Everywhere. My wife was at a conference, and so I just was like, put in tourist destination on my phone, walk to that, and if I saw something more interesting, I would turn off directions and just walk there instead. So,
and where did you visit?
Went to both the Kensington and Buckingham Palace, the Abbey and Big Ben, and Tower of London. Real
proper tourist stuff.
Yeah. Real first time tourist stuff.
Did you enjoy it the first time over here?
Yeah, it was great. That was a lot of fun. It was very weird. All the cars coming at a different direction than I'm used to. Like, usually I'm a very good pedestrian, but I'm like, oh man, I'm going to get run over for sure.
I'm pleased you didn't say wrong direction.
Right, just different. That's good times. But what got each of you into music?
Whoa.
That's a very vague one, isn't it?
I'd probably let someone else start that while I try and rack my memories, because it's so long ago.
I'll go first if you don't mind, boys. I got into music through school, and my parents. They're not musical people, but they've always played lots of different music around me since I was very young. And then when I was in primary school, so elementary for the US, it's you get an opportunity with sort of to choose an instrument, and I really wanted to learn the violin. sucked at it when I was going into group lessons. Ended up going to a private teacher who just completely drew out this passion for music for me. And then ever since that point, I was then like, when you start getting to those angsty teenage years, I was like, I want a cool instrument. Like, I want to be one of the cool kids. So I
want flames on my violin.
Yeah, the violin's a really sad instrument. And then I was like, I'll learn guitar. Sucked at that. I was like, I'll learn bass. Sucked at that. And then I was like, I'll learn guitar again. And I persisted at it and apply my musical knowledge. And ever since that point, just
still sucked, yeah.
Still sucked. Better timing than you'll ever have. And just carried on from there, and it's encompasses my entire existence now, really.
Nice.
Seb?
Okay then, yeah, go for it. So
formulating, are you, Steve?
Yeah, still long time ago, mate.
Mine's sort of similar to Jacob, really. So yeah, I started when I started secondary school. I've always been into punk and rock and stuff before I started playing drums, but I guess drums was one of the obvious ways to me anyway, to really like get more into rock and just play along to my favorite bands at the time. So started year 7 and had the option to start playing an instrument. So yeah, chose drums, and ever since year 7 I've been playing drums. I taught myself guitar and bass at school as well, so I can play a little bit, but drums was my real passion, still is, obviously.
Just sat behind the kit resentful though, just doing something else. So I did remember, I promised. My musical journey, I guess, started. My dad was hammering like U2, Dire Straits, and stuff like that, and Pink Floyd and the Who. And I just remember being, this is really cool. And my first school that I did music in, they taught us the ocarina. And I don't know if you know what an ocarina is, a small woodwind instrument. And if you've ever played The Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time, you would have seen it. But yeah, learned that, was rubbish at it. And then they went, you can kind of shout real loud, so we're going to put you into the school choir, and ended up becoming the lead in the school choir, just going around singing Jesus bangers to all the schools and churches in the local area. They'll shine, Jesus shine. They would just hailing them out, and yeah, actually ended up doing quite well with it, and then had a bit of a passion for singing. Not that I was any good, and then kind of wiggled my way into music, into a band, because I contribute zero apart from being really shouty and writing some lyrics. So I just, that sounds quite good. We'll move that around. But yeah, it all started with the simple ocarina.
What led you into thinking you could scream and do that?
I mean, it was more a case of I remember the first metal album I was ever given. I remember I bought Hybrid Theory by Linkin Park and was like, this is amazing. And then I started kind of drifting into like rockier stuff. And then my parents were getting some work done on their house, and there was this builder there, and he was about 6'8", covered in tattoos. And he went, "You'll like this band." And he handed me Kill Switch Engage, The End of Heartache. And I was like, oh! And that was it from there. And I was just trying to replicate what Howard Jones was doing. And I would just scream in my car as much as I could. Nice. That's pretty much it. Yeah. I just really wanted to drive home how much I could shout.
That's awesome. What was the scene like for you guys when you were in like your later school years and starting bands?
For me, locally, it was it's changed over recent years where I live. It's always been quite central in London. Like, London's the place for it, and it is sort of the further out you go. Everyone says 10 years ago it was an amazing scene, and it is sort of true. Like, the further you get out of London, the better the scene was when you were younger. So Brighton was like the next place to play shows at if you weren't in London, and I live just outside Brighton. So basically every band that would ever come through would play London, Brighton, and then a couple of other cities up north sort of style things. Portsmouth being another one, Southampton, like all those sort of places. And then over the years, like it died. And then it was just London, really. I think it's because there's more fancy people moved into Brighton and complained about venues. The venues started getting shut down. And now it seems to be sort of going backwards again. Like the bands are starting to come back through. The venues are starting to have a bit more of a guarding from people moving in, and it's sort of it's changed. But back in the day, it was incredible. Like you'd get like August Burns Red, Kill Switch, Taste of Chaos tour. You'd get everything coming through because there were so many different venues they could choose from. It was like pick and mix for them, and it was brilliant.
Trying to think when we were back at school, it was like the local community centres were gig venues, like art centres down the road. Like where my parents live is a really middle class area, very close to the river, quite very affluent. And I remember going to a hardcore show at the local art centre, and there were just goths everywhere. Everyone had dyed their hair black. Like huge jeans, massive hoodies, and I was like, I'm with my people. And I don't think I've ever been to a show there since. I just remember every other weekend it was like, you know, this school is putting on 4 bands from 4 different schools, and everyone would bowl in, and everyone was starting bands left, right, and centre. But ironically, this is actually my first band, so I was never in a band before. So I just kind of stepped away. I just really enjoyed watching it and didn't think I was any good at it.
From my point of view, I was the opposite to Steve. In my school, I was in every band I could get into. I was.
Well, you were the drummer, so
yeah,
you were needed.
Yeah, I was jazz bands, rock bands, orchestras, marching bands. Everything really. And you know, at the end of the school year, they'd have concerts and all that. So I was pretty busy at the end of the year.
So at the end of the year, you come off the stage at any point, Seb? I'll just stay.
Maybe just to get a drink or just to add more cymbals.
Yeah. But to be fair, Seb, you went to a music school, so I'm not surprised you're involved in lots of that.
Well, the music school I went to was after college, so that was a bit later on.
Okay.
But yeah, I'm still on about secondary school. Still, I feel there's people that what I was in school bands with did sort of after school and weekend clubs and all that sort of thing. I've only ever played the nearby towns back in the day. I think I had a good experience with playing different genres, not only the heavier stuff, but seeing what other genres and local festivals and fates and all that there were. But I've only been in this metal band and one before, so yeah, this is my almost. I've been in this band for about 8 years, but I was going to say it's a new band, but it's not. So yeah, that's me.
Well, that's a good transition. How'd the band get started?
Oh, well, these two aren't original members. We kind of drafted them in as people kind of fell off and, commitments came in. But essentially, Jack, Tony and I kind of started talking online. Jack and Tony, the other two aren't here. Jack plays guitar and Tony plays bass. And I just put a couple of like really shoddy recordings up online of me just screaming, I think, As I Lay Dying and Heart of the Coward songs. And they got in contact with me and let's do an audition, come down, started practicing, and then we kind of gelled really, really quickly. And then I was like, well, I've got this guy that I know back home who plays guitar, can kind of scream as well. He came down, and then we had an original drummer at the time as well, and we just kind of started jamming stuff and played a few shows and released a little EP. And And then we ended up doing a bit of touring, and it was then that we kind of realized that we needed to rejig things a little bit, and two of the members left because they wanted to do new stuff. And then Seb came on board, and Jacob actually was TMing for us when we did our second EP, which is probably around about where most bands would go, right, that was a good little experiment. Let's change name and change what we were going to do. And we loved the name, and we stuck with it. And we wrote this EP called Illuminate. And I think, Jake, you were TMing us and guitar teching us for about 2 years, and all you'd see is like Dom, our old guitarist, would like break a string, and then there's live videos of Jacob scurrying on, flipping guitars over, changing strings, and then handing him back the guitar at the end of it. And Dom ended up leaving, and it was like a natural. We were like, there's no other person that we wanted to get involved in the project. So, and that's when we were like, right, let's sit down and focus and write an album. We just liked playing shows and hadn't really got much of a focus at the time, and that's where we got to.
Nice. Right. Where'd the name come from?
Oh God, that was that was a bit of a. It was a bit of a title I was kicking around for a while when writing lyrics, and it was like a very cathartic thing. I almost wanted a theme, a record with that name, just a big kind of download of all my thoughts and how I felt I was perceived, and how I kind of wanted to be a better person. And if I could confess that, it felt very, like I say, cathartic. So I remember presenting it as a potential record name for like Future before we even had a name, and the boys were like, "I really like this name for the band. Like maybe we should do that." Because the original name, well, the working title, so to speak, was Punish the Butler. And I was like, this is not happening, fellas. This is not happening. So that one just stood out to us, and it's kind of garnered many different meanings over the years, but started as a bit of a download and catharsis around, admitting of my flaws.
That's awesome.
The real reason it wasn't called Punish the Butler was because it's a little bit too close to home for Steve with his butler. A little bit bad about it.
Oh, man. How did the pandemic affect you guys? You guys continued to release EPs and singles and music over the shutdown and kind of the craziness the last 2 years. But how did it hit you guys, and whatever vision you had for 2020?
Well, it wasn't that long after we'd released our first album, Guided. That came out in October 2019. And we had basically had like touring plans. We had everything sort of lined up to just sort of absolutely tore everything out of the album. And then March 23rd came along and just decided that there was a different plan entirely. And we were sort of, oh, okay, what did we do? And then it was just like, now I'll be over in a couple of weeks. A couple of weeks went past, you're like, it's just going to be here for a while, actually. And Steve, with his job, sort of had a bit of an inside track as to what was going on, because they would talk to like the NHS and everything, and he'd be like, yeah, this is going to be around quite a while, guys. So like, we're going to have to do something else instead of, we're not going to be playing shows anytime soon, which created a lot of emotional damage for in the band.
The material, the lyrics that came out of it were just like, oh.
And for our guitarist Jack, he couldn't go and do anything. He couldn't go like to the pub. He couldn't go on the sesh, as we like to call it here. And essentially, he was kind of like locked in his room, and he's like, "Oh, I've got nothing else to do. All I'm doing is working, and then coming back and doing nothing else," and just turned into an absolute writing machine. And it was like that point, Steve was like, "Right, well, let's make
channel this.
Yeah, let's just channel this. Let's make Hey While the Sun Shines and everything." And we just got to work on it remotely. And then the moment that any sort of slight easing of any of the rules came around, it was just like, oh, I'm just going on this walk 4 hours away
with all of my equipment. Yeah, we had very tight restrictions over here, so we weren't allowed to merge households, and like it was just me and my housemate who lived in the flat, and any time there was a little flex in the rules, like you can have 5 people in your house, it was like, right, get over here, bring all your gear, and we'll record in my living room. And I remember all the guitars were tracked this is for the EP Press Start to Play, were tracked where I'm sat now. And then Jake came up, I think, for about a week and brought his mic. And again, right here, I was just going, and the police were called on us a couple of times because they thought there was domestic abuse going on. And then they saw 2 bearded, burly men in the living room go, and they were like, okay, well, yeah, I think you guys are all right. But yeah, I think to kind of build off what Jake was saying, like, I think Jack wrote, what was it, 32 or 36 songs, wasn't it?
That was like after we'd done the EP, because like I think 2 of the songs were stuff that we'd already been writing way before we'd even released the first album, because we weren't doing anything. We're under the confines of like release dates and everything. So we're like, oh, let's just carry on writing. We'd get together, we'd write some songs that were good, some songs that were really poor. Ironically, that's where Peacekeeper was written during that time period. And it originally been earmarked for other things, so we just never did anything with it until we were going to do the right time. And then we did these like 5 songs, and then just sort of out of nowhere, we're like, oh, okay, cool. So we've done this EP. And then Jack was like, oh, yeah, here's this song. I'm like, oh, that's cool. Here's this song. Okay, that's cool. Here's this song. Okay, here's this song. What's wrong with you? Like 10 songs back to back in the same chat within about 10 minutes of each other.
Yeah.
So, like, give us enough time to hear the first one. Go, oh, yeah, it's all right. It's like, oh, there's another one. All right, cool. It's like a scene from like The Simpsons. Oh, piece of candy. Riff. And after that, look, there were 30 odd songs here, and this went on for a month or so. And then it was just like, all right, I guess we're doing an album then.
Yeah. Well, it was one of these things where we'd selected 5 cool songs to go on an EP, mm-hmm. and we were like, right. And then I remember I was writing, and I was like, I've got a really, really fun idea, because all we were doing in lockdown, Jake and I were on Xbox and we're playing Halo. We've got pretty much start to finish every single game. And I went, Jacob, I'm going to write a song about Halo, and I'm not going to tell any of the boys that it's about Halo. And I remember I sent through the demo track, and everyone was like, yeah, this is really cool. And then I was like, haha, it's about a game. And then that's where the EP was born from, this idea of like, well, we're in lockdown. I don't want to sing about lockdown stuff, so I'm going to sing about video games. And then in the background, what was going on is we planned this kind of like drawn out release schedule, to kind of keep content dripping through. And we'd actually recorded all of the guitars, all of the drums, even before the final song of the EP was released, and then went straight into the studio the moment we could to do the vocals. And it was just like we had this massive music that we were just kind of sat on for a little while, mm-hmm. In like this crazy anticipation to release it. And I think, we were a little bit patient with it, and we put in a lot more time and effort or it allowed us to put a lot more time and effort into the actual production and recording of the final parts, especially the vocals, when we did it with a chap called Justin.
That's it. We had everything ready, albeit we still ended up doing the vocals last minute. There's not something in this band that can't happen last minute. And we'd had this forever, and then I think it was like 3 days before we were going into the studio, Steve was like, "So I've rewritten all the vocal lyrics for everything." I was like, "What?"
Every single song I've rewritten.
For the best. It was, some trying times, but it all panned out like extremely well. So like everything was like ready to go, and now we're sort of going through the cycle of it all, and we're just kind of waiting to see what everyone thinks about all the material yet to come.
how'd you guys get connected with Facedown Records?
I mean,
ongoing one as well, isn't it?
Oh yeah, so we've actually been in contact with Jason over at Facedown since 2019, since we released Guided.
Wow.
And I think we'd basically sat on Guided for a long time because we just didn't know what to do with an album.
Yeah.
We were like, whoa, we've got all these songs, how do we release it? We just didn't know what we were doing. So, we spoke to Jason back then and he was very interested in us. But the problem was we were kind of sat there twitching because we'd had this for such a long time that we just wanted to get something out. And our timelines just didn't work. So we pushed it out. And I think from then it was like, okay, we're just going to keep an eye on these guys. Had a little kind of conversation during press start to play. And then our manager, Greg, kind of reached out to him with the 2 tracks that we've just released, Peacekeeper and Punishing Myself Before God Does, and he signed us off just those 2 songs. We hadn't even finished recording the rest of the album, so I think when we pushed the other tracks over to him, it was like, okay, this is taking it a bit seriously. And the irony is Peacekeeper wasn't even going to be on the album.
Nice.
So we were like, we'll hold it and we'll just release it another time. But I think it kind of really resonated with them. And that
was his favorite. That was Jason's favorite song.
Oh, cool.
It was extremely passionate about it, and I think it took Steve about 3 days to sell it on me and Jack because we'd recorded it 5 times, so the pair of us couldn't stand the song anymore. So like Steve's like, we're gonna go to the studio and record it again. Pair of us like.
they wanted to cut it from the album completely. They were like, nah, we're only doing this because you've asked us to. And I was like, so yeah, it just goes to show how close you can stay to your music and how much you can then end up resenting it. And then it comes out and everyone's like, oh, this is quite good. And you're like, oh yeah, I really like that song again.
Yeah. Yeah, it's funny. That's playing in my headphones right now. That's awesome. That's awesome. Is there a scene? I know it's less segregated now here stateside than it used to be, but there's like a scene over in the UK for like faith-based heavy bands, or is it just like everybody plays together all the time and there's never like this like separation of?
There is no scene.
Yeah.
There's absolutely nothing. And
it was a bit small. Sorry, it was a bit small before COVID. Really, like the same sort of groups of cliques would all gig and tour together, and then if by chance I or Jacob or whatever fired off an email to try and get onto a gig, 40% of the time we'd get a yes. It was still trying to penetrate those cliques really, but after COVID it's got even worse.
I think there's been a big deterrent on it, and I think you look at the American scene for it, it's thriving, and in fact it's growing. Like some of our collectively our favorite bands sit within that genre. You got Fit for a King, August Burns Red, Gideon, and there's nothing like that over here. We almost feel like a bit of an outlier sometimes because of that.
Speaking of Gideon,
bit of a personal joke that.
Is it tough? Do people in the scene treat you guys or bands from like a faith perspective like differently because of your message, or is it just like, yeah, you're a good heavy band, so yeah, you can play like?
I mean, it definitely ebbs and flows. Yeah. Let's put it like that. And I think predominantly the message we've always kind of cascade out is this sort of Pope. Not the Pope, but maybe the Pope, but you never know. Hope and positivity. Yeah, and I think that's we almost have to kind of like drill that through in that format to kind of like just kind of radiate through the way in which we are. I don't think we've ever been, I say, persecuted or anything like that, but I think there's definitely a bit of a reservation sometimes, and you can feel it. But
we've always taken a different angle to the standard trends that are in the UK, and sort of generally across sort of the metal as a whole, really, which is it's shouty. You got to be sad. You got to be angry, and potentially be into some sort of weird worship if in the extreme cases for people. And we've always just done it differently. Like, we smile in photos. Like, I don't know if you've ever seen the film A Million Ways to Die in the West, and like, what kind of sick person smiles in a photo? That's us guys in the metal community. Like the first people to smile in photos and stuff, or have colourful imagery, and aren't all wearing black and stuff like that. And like, other bands have started doing similar things, not off the back of us, but sort of there's a less essentialness on being sort of sad and unhappy and angry in the community now. And we've always tried to just stay away from that. We're not overtly sad people, other than Steve was during this album writing cycle.
But the belief got me through it. The belief, man.
Yeah, it's always wild, because when I was in what would be secondary school, and like it'd be like people would be like, yeah, Living Sacrifice sounds cool, but they're Christian, so like F them, right? And then it was like Under Oath and Norma Jean broke through, and everybody was like, yeah, Christian metal is cool now. So it's like,
well, it's like I only got into Impending Doom the last few, I think probably say the last 2 months, and I'm like, wow, like, this is horrendous. I'm like, as a Christian, it's so heavy. This is like, yeah, it just blows me away. So yeah, I don't think there's any boundaries to it, really, to be honest. If you like, hopefully what you'd like to think is that people like what they like, but sometimes there can be a bit of a caveat to it. So, you know.
Well, Punishing Myself Before God Does, out September. Any themes you were hoping to convey on this record in writing? Outside of Halo, I mean, I know Halo was the EP.
Yeah, that was the EP. I think there's a running theme of emotional damage. Is the theme of the album? No, to be fair, it was a very trying time for all of us during the pandemic, on a personal level for all of us. I think each of us experienced wildly different issues throughout the time. Like, I caught COVID 3 times and ended up back in an ambulance after the second time, and really struggled with my health. And I know, you know, Jake and Jack really struggled with their mental health during that time. And there was a lot of, like, you can go through like stages of severe self-loathing, and, you know, and it really kind of compounded it as you started to put it to paper. And I remember getting to the sort of pinnacle of it all, and it was when I changed all of the lyrics. Like, there was this kind of undercurrent of bits and bobs that were going on, and, you know, I just thought that what we were about to put out was not representative of how I felt at the time. And I remember feeling incredibly guilty, incredibly sad, but wanting, like, almost using the record and the writing process as catharsis to get myself and the rest of the guys through it. Because, you know, there's a song on the album called To Care for Those Who Cared for Us, and it's about people with dementia. 4 members of the band's family have or have died from dementia during this period of time. And it was just that kind of like, I need to get this emotion out, and I need to represent each and every member of this band. And everyone went through, you know, heartache, whether it be you know, relationship, or whether it be family members or friends, you know, passing or separating, whatever that was. And it was just, what this album is this kind of amalgamation of emotion, guilt, and, you know, the relief at the end of it, that kind of like, you know, that recognizing of how bad it was, but that you can always pull yourself out of it.
It's been such a fun and really exciting, and we've learned so much during this whole process. And yeah, we can only learn from it and take it into the next album or EP or whatever.
That's cool. You guys got any 2022 plans? Yeah.
We've got a festival at the end of this month called Tech Fest. And then, we've got a few gigs around album time, still yet to be sort of confirmed and announced. But obviously, being on an American label, hopefully, next year is going to be the time when we can get out to America.
Yeah.
And then just conquer the world after that.
There's a lot going on. We're having a lot of conversations, and I think as the material starts to come out, we've just released 2 singles. The podcast will come out soon, but it's likely that the 3rd single will be out by then.
Probably. We're talking. This won't come out till August at least. So.
Fine. Okay. So
there you go.
Yeah. Right. So Forever Hollow, which is probably collectively the band's favorite song, comes out on the 24th. Is it this Friday?
Yeah, this Friday.
We're very excited to release that. So by the time this podcast is out, everyone will be listening to or have heard it. And then off the back of that, there's a lot of talks about us getting back out to Europe, and obviously, starting to have the talks about coming out to America. So, I think it's very, very important for us to kind of spread our wings and start really pushing the release and, getting over and seeing where most people are listening to us, which is in the States at the moment.
Yeah.
Thanks for listening to As the Story Grows. Our intro music was written and composed by Jeremy Hunt. The As the Story Grows theme is by Bob Nana. If you like what you hear, subscribe wherever you get your podcasts and give us a rating and review. If you'd like to support the show financially, you can join us at patreon.com/asthestorygrows. Be a part of our community and join the ongoing conversation over on Discord. If you enjoy this episode, share it on social media with your friends. Much appreciated, and thanks for listening.
I never felt so young and alive as when I'm diving into a tune. And now I'm learning as I listen along, and the wheels are turning, and I started a song.